Hey, I'm at the backboard. It's kind of beautiful, waiting for a lesson. It's late in the season. It's already November, but I got a couple lessons coming up, and I'm practicing. And one thing I like to do is I like to practice with 2 rackets, and it helps me get my early racket preparation. I call it EP, and so I use 2 rackets. I can also strengthen the opposite hand, so I can practice right-handed and left-handed. I think it's very good that in order to prevent injuries, to use both hands and to be able to strengthen both sides of your body. Maybe some people say right brain, left brain, and so I like to practice both left-handed and right-handed. So I'm going to practice both sides. And sometimes I do an exercise what I call clap a racket. I just tap my racket, and so it's a great way of practicing. Is I just tap on the backhand side. I can also practice my forehand on my left-hand side, and so I just practice. And it's a great way of making sure my racket's back, and it's a good hand-eye coordination exercise. Playing out the backboard is just a great way of training. You can do this in the basement, and you can make a little board at home and practice like this. You can come to the court in the winter if the courts aren't locked up. In cold weather, some places are locking up their courts. It's sad because there's backboards you can practice off, and so I'm not sure about these courts here, but I'm hoping they keep the doors open so you can come over and practice against the backboard, even if it's cold weather. And so it's a great way of practicing. And so people used to play handball. It's just a great way of exercising. I can also practice between my legs if I want. Any shot that you're going to use behind the back or between the legs, make sure that you practice. Don't be practicing ball. Don't be practicing unless you practice something. Don't use those shots. If I feel like I can hit behind my back, what I'll do is I'll do that, but I want to make sure that I practice it. And so don't use shots you don't practice. And so you want to make those spectacular shots, you'll make the fancy shots, and then you make sure that you practice, okay? And so here I'm using 2 hands. I also like to use short rackets. I use I call it short racket. Hand-eye coordination on both sides. And you notice that my stance is more open. And so I can practice between my legs then, if I want to. I can practice behind my back. I can do it both right-handed and left-handed. So I practice between my legs, both left-handed and right-handed. It'll go right behind between my legs. And so it's a great way of practicing. It's a fun way to practice hand-eye coordination. And so I can practice both left-handed and right-handed. It's a great way of practicing. So I encourage you to practice. So I use short racket, then I lengthen my racket, and I use long rackets. And so sometimes I do a short, I do it in the middle, okay? The middle, or I just put my finger through the throat of the racket and practice, because when you're playing tennis, you want your wrist to be free so you can use it. I grew up with wood rackets, and they're heavier, and we tend to keep our racket more on edge. Today we use more of a closed racket. Rackets are lighter, and so it's a great way of practicing. And equipment's changed, and so I'm using some older Babolat's. They're great rackets, and so depending on what rackets you use, whether the Head or Wilson, work on practicing. So I got my finger through the center, and now I'm just practicing. I can do both. Tap my rackets. I do right-handed and left-handed. It's a great way of practicing, and so I encourage you to practice with 2 rackets. It's just a fun way of practicing. So I encourage you to practice off a backboard, especially in the winter if the courts are open and there's a backboard.